Hi class, this is Kendra Moyer and this is the week 7 discussion, which is on dictionaries in Python. A dictionary is basically a data structure which is available in Python, and it is a list that allows you to compile a collection of data referred to usually by a single variable name. In a dictionary, we find that the data is represented in a key value pairs. Dictionaries actually rely on these key value pairs so that each assigned piece of data can have a value that goes along with it. So another thing in Python with using dictionaries, curly braces are used to code out the key value pairs and to separate them in the proper syntax. So an example, you could have a pet store. So you'd have a given order to print pet store, and then you do your curly brackets, and you could, for example, say the first pet type, which you'd put in just colons, pet type, separated by a comma, semicolon, would be then you'd have in quotations again, dog, separated by a comma. We could go on to list things like the color of the pet, whether or not the pet store offered parking, the number of days the pet store was open, the name of the street, city, and so forth of this pet store could all be listed in this dictionary as variables that could be pulled out from a user who is inputting their own data. So dictionaries are very useful for creating data structures where we have to organize a lot of different information or create essentially databases that people can pull down from. So usually we're using assignment statements to assign new values to these existing key pairs. So if we, for example, were to print pet store and we wanted to specifically find what city the pet store was in, we could use an assignment statement. So we put pet store, we would put that again into the regular brackets, and in quotation city equals Denver. As a programmer, we would have the ability to change that name or have a list of names that we could cross-reference, and that we'll get into a little bit later in this discussion. We can always add new key pairs and values to a dictionary, though, using these assignment statements. So it's a good tool to learn that everything that is entered in a computer is given in most programs some kind of value, whether it's a number or a string value or a true-false statement. There are also some additional operations or functions that can be used in a dictionary. We can use functions to find all keys. That would be putting the dictionary in the bracket dot keys and then in parentheses period, and the same could be done for values. We put dictionary in brackets dot values and then the parentheses. Both are calls to a functions, and they would return a list. So the dictionary dot keys with the paragraph would return all the keys, or all the keys, and the second dictionary dot values would return all the values. So that's just one way we can explore how keys and values are used. Using an operator in a dictionary. When we're accessing items in a dictionary, we have to have the correct or valid key, or a key that's already defined within the dictionary that we are using. Otherwise, we will get a key error. So we can use the if-else functions in our encoding our programs to create an error message that is checking for items that are or are not in the dictionary to alert the user. And we can also put in code where if else the user has the option to add new categories or new terms to the dictionary, and that's something that's touched upon in Calv's text. Few more things about Python is that it iterates through a dictionary. So if you need to iterate through all the elements of a dictionary, similarly to a list, you can use a for loop in a dictionary, the variable specified in the for statement is given the value of a key in the dictionary every time the loop is run, or so each time through the loop. Because you're iterating through a dictionary, you cannot rely on the order of the keys. The program using the for loop will iterate through every key in the dictionary until it comes upon the specific value or term that is being sought. So we can program for the output of one category or for more than one category. In the example used in the Cal book was the states and the population, so you could ask the program to give the output from the dictionary of all of the states, or you could also add the variable of the population of all of the states. So depending on what is listed in your dictionary's terms, or what the variables are the stored values are, you could take it in many different directions. So the last part of the lesson on dictionaries is that we can combine lists and dictionaries, and we can create highly complex data structures through mixing and matching lists and dictionaries, as we kind of touched on. So for example, there could be a list of dictionaries that would allow you to pull down data, for example, a real estate database or data structure, which would let you look at the number of 3-bedroom, 2-bath houses within a certain zip code. That would let the lists and the dictionaries combined would allow you to iterate through large data sets for these specific criteria, and save yourself a lot of time and create obviously programs and user functioning programs that could be very useful. So that's kind of what I learned this week about dictionaries. Using lists with dictionaries allows you to create very complex and very powerful data structures, and Python is intuitive enough that it can be written to extract some of this necessary information from these larger databases. So, and this is all done through using the correct indices and or the proper keys. One last thing I did learn in this lesson this week, because I do a little bit of computer classes that I've taught in the past around encryption and encryption keys, and this lesson kind of gave me a little bit better understanding of how the private and public keys are matched and stored, and how programs like Python kind of go through and iterate through each of those keys to make sure that you are getting valid key pairs. So it kind of tied into some information that I was sort of aware of, but it gave me a little bit more of a foundation for how keys work within programming logic. So so that's my presentation on the lesson for week 7, and thank you for listening. I'd love to hear your thoughts on keys and values, and how you are using dictionaries as you explore Python. Thanks again.